Welcome to our exciting tutorial on developing a 3D strategy game using Java. In this series, we will cover a range of topics that will guide you through the entire process, from setting up your development environment to implementing game mechanics. To start off, we need to set up our Java development environment. We will be using IntelliJ IDEA and Maven for this project, accompanied by the lightweight Java game library, LWJGL, to handle our 3D graphics rendering. First, ensure you have the JDK installed. You can download it from Oracle's official website. After installation, let's move on to setting up IntelliJ IDEA. Open IntelliJ IDEA and create a new project. Choose Maven from the project types and select Create from Archetype. Use the Maven Archetype Quick Start archetype for simplicity. In the Group ID field, enter com.strategygame, and for Artifact ID, enter 3D strategy game. This sets the foundation of our project structure. Now let's add the LWJGL dependency to our pom.xml file. Open the pom.xml located in the root of your project and add the following dependency inside the dependencies tag. This code specifies the LWJGL version we will be using. Afterwards, ensure that your project is reloaded to download the dependencies. You can do this by going to the Maven panel on the right-hand side and clicking on the reload icon. Now, we will create the main class of our game. Right-click on the src/main/java/com/strategygame directory and create a new Java class named game. This will house our main method and game initialization code. Here's a brief explanation of the code. In the init method, we initialize glfw and create our window. The run method contains our main game loop, where we continuously render our game and check for window events. Finally, we clean up resources when exiting the game. Let's run the project to see a basic window displaying a triangle. In IntelliJ, right-click on the game class and select Run. You should see a window pop up displaying a simple triangle. Now that we have our basic window set up, it's time to expand our game further. A strategy game typically requires a game map, units, and interactions. In the next step, we will implement basic 3D terrain. To create a simple terrain, we'll need to define our vertices and indices. We'll create a new class named Terrain, where we'll generate a flat terrain model. Start by creating a new class under the com.strategygame package. In this class, we define a simple flat terrain created by specifying 4 vertices. The getVertexBuffer method converts our vertex array to a float buffer for OpenGL usage, and the getIndices method returns our index buffer for rendering. Now we need to modify our render method in the game class to include drawing our terrain. We will create an instance of the terrain class and draw it accordingly. This code will render our flat terrain on the window. If you run the game now, you should see your terrain being displayed. Next, let's improve the visual aspect of our game by adding textures. Textured terrain will greatly enhance the aesthetic appeal of our game. For this, we will load a texture and apply it to our terrain model. To load textures in LWJGL, we will use the STB image library. Start by adding the necessary dependency to your pom.xml. Next, create a new class named Texture to handle texture loading. Here's a basic implementation of the texture class that will manage our texture resources. In this class, the loadTexture method handles the process of loading an image file, converting it into a texture format that OpenGL can work with. We create and bind the texture resources to the OpenGL context. Next, we'll need to modify our terrain class to include texture coordinates. Update the generateTerrain method with texture coordinates for each vertex. This modification appends texture coordinates to the vertices we previously defined. Each vertex now includes its respective x, y, z position along with texture coordinates. We'll now bind the loaded texture in our render method before drawing the terrain. Let's modify the render method to incorporate this. This ensures that the texture is applied to the vertices we render. If you run your game now with a texture image loaded, you should see your 3D terrain textured. Next, we need to create units for our strategy game. Units will represent the entities that players will control. Let's start by creating a new class named Unit. This unit class contains attributes for the position and methods for movement. This basic implementation can be expanded to include actions, health systems, and characteristics later on. Now, let's create and render a unit in our game class. First, initialize a list of units to manage them effectively. In this code, we maintain a list of units and iterate through it in the render method, calling renderUnit for each unit. Inside renderUnit, we set the position using OpenGL transformations so that each unit appears at the correct location on the map. Let's run our game again. If implemented correctly, you should see your unit rendered on the terrain at the specified position. Now that we have units moving around, we need to handle interactions. This includes selecting units, issuing movement commands, and basic AI behaviors. We'll tackle unit selection first. This code snippet handles mouse button input for selecting units. We can further refine this method to check if the mouse clicks on a unit and highlight the selected unit. As for issuing movement commands, we can extend our check-input method to handle mouse position and move the selected unit when a destination is clicked. This snippet updates the selected unit's position based on where the player clicks the mouse on the window. Implement this, and you should be able to control your unit's movements with clicks. Now, let's add a simple AI to our unit so they can patrol or follow certain paths. For this, we'll implement a basic state machine for unit behaviors. This AI unit class extends the unit class and implements basic states. We'll need to implement the update method to determine how the AI reacts in each state. We've come a long way in building our 3D strategy game. The key now is to keep expanding upon what we've created. You can add features such as resource management, building construction, and more unit types to enhance game complexity. As we wrap up, I encourage you to explore further into game development. Consider using libraries like libGDX or learning OpenGL for advanced graphics features. Your journey in game development has just begun. Thank you for joining me in this tutorial. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below and let us know what else you would love to learn.